Do you guys remember before we went from working from home, how when you would sit in traffic every single day, and if you were in DC like me at one point, you maybe hit your steering wheel, you got frustrated, you didn't want to be in the traffic. You thought, how amazing would it be if I can work from home? And then COVID happened, and work from home became a real thing. And I think most of us realized it was a real challenge in a much different way to balance your own self-care and having time, to balance your marriage, and to balance your family when it came from working from home. And the thing is, working from home is causing so much strain on families around the world, but especially here in the US, we're seeing it really start to hurt a lot of marriages. So we're going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, because I had burnout working from home. And thank God I had this beautiful lady, my co-host, my partner in crime, Stephanie, next to me, that supported me along the way. So hang tight. We're going to talk about working from home, the realities of what that means, the true raw and realness of the struggle that can happen when you're doing it. And as always, we're going to give you some key points that you can take away to start creating a healthier environment if you're working from home, or prepare you if you end up working from home at some point. So welcome to the Legacy Driven Marriages podcast. I'm Walt McKinley, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, my partner in crime. You guys know her as Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
She's like, stop being so extra. Good Lord. So look, we love that you guys are here. Hit that subscribe button. We cannot reach not only you, but we can't reach the people who need this podcast without your help and support. Your subscription and to the podcast, and also your review, means so much. So please, we would be super grateful if you could take time to do that. And, Steph, I know you've got some thoughts. You've been a stay-at-home mom supporting my career that I've never gotten to work at home from until COVID happened. And I started to work from home, and that presented some real challenges.
Yeah, and you would have thought him being at home, I'd see him more, but that was not the case, really. It was kind of surprising. Like, here he is. He's in our home office. He's right there. I can see him technically, but
physical form of him was in the office.
So I have to say that was like a kind of a really weird experience to know that they're right there, but yet still seem kind of far away because they're not really accessible like you would think. And that's kind of what we wanted to get into, is just how much, like, I've been hearing this from a lot of couples. I was telling Walt the other day we should do this podcast because we had a couple who used to work with Walt, actually. They expressed that this was a challenge for them. And then I was watching a show the other day, and I told them I heard all these couples talking about saying the same thing, that they're finding it hard to establish boundaries from when they work at home, that they're just working nonstop 24/7, and it's hurting their relationship. And we experienced some of this too, as he was saying, his last 2 years of work, he was at home, and it
Grinding.
was, yes.
Yeah,
and it was very difficult. And so we thought this would be a really good topic because it's become this new way of life. So we know, like, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. So we probably do need to start addressing how do we deal with this better so that it doesn't affect our relationships and our families, and we can still have both, and it's fruitful,
And here's a couple things, guys. So if you're sitting out there and you're like, oh my gosh, I needed this episode more than you guys can ever know, I want to give you some statistics. They're pretty sobering, but it'll also help you know that you're not alone. Right now, a recent study from monster.com, they came out and said that 69% of remote workers feel burnt out because they can't find the balance, or can't seem to find the balance of how to really turn off the work day and how to decompress and how to be able to have that time with their loved ones. 53% of people in another survey said they've had some depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues since they started to work from home, because it is isolating. It can get lonely working from home. You're not having that camaraderie of the office. So for all the good things, you figure you're not sitting in traffic, you're not struggling with that. But on the opposite of not sitting in traffic and being frustrated, some people like the drive to work because it gave them a chance to get ready for the day, gave them a chance to decompress from the day. You might have been jamming to music, listening to podcasts, Legacy Driven Marriage podcast, I hope. You might have been doing those things to kind of reset yourself before you get home. And when you're not working, when you're in the office, you have that opportunity. And there's a real disconnect. It's easy. I'm leaving work, mentally switch. Now I'm going to go home and I'm going to do the family thing. But when you're working from home, and what I found for me is it was really hard to turn that switch off. And during COVID, my personal job, that there was a director that left the company, and then my boss got promoted and was like not doing anything with the job that I was in. So I was basically doing 3 people's jobs at once. So my work went 5 times the amount of work with the same amount of people. The employees are getting super burnt out. As an executive, I'm burnt out. Everybody's just tired. And I just couldn't turn myself off enough to just decompress and take a second and realize that this place will replace me in a second, but I am irreplaceable to my wife and children, and I'm irreplaceable to myself. So I had to learn the hard way, and I am the cautionary tale of how not to do this because of the burnout and the mental breakdown that I personally had working from home.
Yeah, I like that you said, and this is something that I think we got to find a way to make these changes, because when you were saying like when you went to work, you had that drive in, and when you would go to work, generally you take a break or you get lunch at least, and your lunch you get to kind of walk away from your work for a minute, and even the drive home. And when you're at home though, you're not getting that, I can tell you guys, when he was here, he didn't even stop for lunch. Like barely even got to run to the bathroom to go pee. He'd have to let them know like, hey, sorry, I literally I have to use the bathroom.
It's my 4th meeting back to back. I have to go to the restroom.
I was literally bringing him his lunch at his desk, and he could barely wave to me, and that was it. There was no break for his lunch even. And then he'd work till pretty late. And then it's because of cell phones and everything, even when you leave, you don't really leave. It's like people are still messaging you or calling you or emailing you from your work in your off hours. So it's like, where is the end of the day? There's no end of day. Most people aren't even taking a lunch. And it's no wonder there's anxiety and depression and a burnout, because there's no turning it off. And we need that. Our minds need that break. And it just mentally and emotionally, we need those breaks. And I've seen people with 2 and 3 phones that they're carrying around because they have a work phone that they have to carry with them all the time also. So these people have 24/7 access to them. I can't even imagine. I'm blessed to not have worked in that kind of environment. At least when I worked, it was like him. I went and I took my lunch break, and I went, it wasn't this where they could contact you all the time. It's just.
Yeah, but think about even you stayed at home with the kids, and when they're little, it's the same thing. You don't get a break. It doesn't turn off. You're at their beck and call. And that's what we do with our jobs, because we feel this loyalty to the places that are employing us. But what happens when you feel that stress and anxiety and depression, and when you're struggling to turn off work and struggling to find this balance, what happens is it starts to bleed over into your relationship in a negative way, because now that communication with your spouse maybe shuts down. That communication with your spouse, the stress is spiked in it. And so your tone sucks, or your patience level sucks. And then your marriage starts to degrade, and your marriage starts to really hurt, when working from home was this exciting thing you guys thought was actually going to make your marriage better because you could spend more time together.
Well, yeah. And there were certain things I heard people say, he started to be, he was like, because he hated driving in traffic. So he was like, I don't miss that part. And then sometimes it's like, oh, it's kind of nice to just be able to eat at home when I can. Or I could go throw a load of laundry in while I'm working, when they couldn't do that before. Or people who have young children, they're like, I can actually see my kids during the day. I wouldn't have been able to do that. So there were pluses too, but it was starting to get to where that was less and less, and it just became all work. And
we got a friend of ours, she's working from home, and so they've had some change in their organizational structure, like a lot of companies have, where they're expecting you to do more with less people. Because let's be real, it's a bottom line for them. It's super selfish on companies to just wear people out for the sake of a dollar bill. And I get we got to have some sort of like revenue and monetary gain as shareholders, and there's all this stuff that goes with it. But at the end of the day, individually, we got to be happy with what we're doing in life. So where this person said she liked that she could go throw a load of laundry in, or she could like do the dishes real quick in between meetings. And now there's no time for that at all. So not only has a work from home landscape changed, but now we're doing more with less, which requires the employee to elevate how much work that they actually have. So those little wins that you can have working from home are pretty much non-existent now. And I know most of you guys out there are feeling what I'm saying, because I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people that have talked to us about this.
Well, and I heard another couple where she was saying that they do some work together. It was like some kind of acting work together, but then they also had separate careers. And she's like, sometimes I got excited that I got this audition or something, and I just wanted to share the news with him real quick during the day, and I can't even talk to him because he's like, I'm sorry, it's work. Work comes first. And she's like, but it's sad to me, and it's starting to affect our relationship because I can't even share something exciting for a couple seconds. Like, it's that important that you can't make a few minutes for me, type of thing. And she's like, and I'm like, where is the boundary? Because you don't take a lunch break, and then you're working till 11 o'clock at night doing stuff still, even after hours. And so this is what we're talking about, is we have to create those boundaries. The person who is working, you have to create those boundaries for yourself, because your work is not going to do it for you. They're going to take advantage of any little bit of you they can. And the work will always be there. It's never going to stop. But guess what? Your family won't always be there. And like, they won't, as far as like, they're never going to be that age that they were if you have kids, or, that time in your relationship. We all get older and change and grow. So you're never going to be in that same position again, but the work's never going to end. And if you get burnt out and can't do it, they're just going to find someone else who will. So, but you as a dad or a husband or in any of those relationships you have in your life, you can't be replaced. So this is where we need to get through to people that work is not more important. Your relationships in your life are always going to be the most important thing. So take care of those. Work can wait.
Yeah, if you get to the end of your life and people are talking about how you were as an employee, you lost. When we all die and people are reading our eulogy and they're talking about us, what do you want them to say? It has nothing to do with how much money you made, and it has nothing to do with your position at work. But yet we chase and we grind and we feel like we're doing the right thing in the moment, because especially for men, but women too, like, we're providing for our family. We're working hard for our family so that we can have nice things and have this great life. Or hell, right now, some people, just so you can afford to have food, working 2-3 jobs to just make it right now. But Stephanie's right. I was great at what I did as an intelligence officer in the Navy. I was flown to locations to go teach intelligence teams towards the end of my career, specifically asked for by name. I was great at what I did. I loved doing that part of my job. Do you know what? When I retired, Navy's still there. They still got somebody else to fill that. When I worked for the company that I worked for, and they broke my back. They didn't care. You know what they told me? Hang on. Okay, no, we're going to hire for that role. Just hang on a little longer, a little longer, a little longer. And 18 months later, I had a nervous breakdown. And I was a shadow. I was a shell of my former self. I wasn't even enjoying life anymore. And I know some of you guys are sitting out there and you're like, I'm so damn burnt out. How am I supposed to pour into my spouse and my kids when I'm not even happy? I can't even pour out of an empty cup because there's nothing left in it. And that job will replace you instantaneously. The company I left, it don't even matter if they hiccuped after I left. Who cares? They replaced me. And they kept it moving, and they're breaking the backs of the people that are there now, just like they did mine when I was there too. But it wasn't worth my marriage. I lost time in my marriage. I lost time as a father to my children in their teenage years. that I should have been more focused on them, or at least finding a better balance. And that's why balancing working from home or just work in general and your marriage and your family, that's why that's a hot topic this week, is because we know people are out there struggling with this, and you're not alone if you are.
And we can speak to how fast the time goes by. I mean, it feels like you blink and you're like, my kids are now grown and moving out of the house. Like, where did it go?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't always feel like that in the day to day, but we can definitely attest to how fast that goes. And you don't ever get that back. And all the kids have is their memories with you and what you did with them. And, you know, you don't want them to say, oh, my dad was always working or my mom was always working. They never really had time for me. Do you want that to be their memory and what they say about you?
Well, think about all these rich people, right? Because we're in this stupid ass hustle culture where it's like, don't watch Netflix, don't enjoy yourself. Are you kidding me? You're going to actually get something to eat when you could be working? How are you so lazy? And we're in this glorification of this hustle culture. But those same people, if you really peel the layers back, they're divorced. They don't have good relationships. Their freaking kids hate them. So who cares if you have money at the end of your life if the rest of your life sucks? So how do you find the balance of prioritizing what's most important? That's your marriage, that's your family, that's your kids, that's yourself, and making that job secondary, because that job should never take a priority over the most precious things that we all have. Unfortunately, somewhere we just kind of lose our focus on that, and I've done it too, and we switch the priorities. So this is about getting back to what's important. And so Steph mentioned key point number 1 for today is establishing clear boundaries. And I put with your job and your spouse. So I'm going to talk about the job part first. Establishing clear boundaries with your job. I've said it 2 or 3 times, and it's just so freaking true. They will replace you. The day you die of a heart attack at your desk, they will have your desk cleared the next day. Somebody will say they were a really good person, and then they're going to hire somebody else to take your job. They don't care. They just don't, and that's the reality. The people that care about you, your spouse and your kids, are the ones who really lose in that because you poured everything to that. Without boundaries, that's where we go. Anxiety, depression, mental breakdowns, heart attacks, not enjoying our life, being grumpy, being shitty to the people around us, all because of a paycheck. We got to re-wicker this and start setting these boundaries.
This is where I can't speak to because I haven't worked a job in many years. So
yeah, but you saw me not set boundaries.
I have been working. I can say I've been working at home for a long time. I've been a stay-at-home mom, but even in our home, like we had to set some boundaries of like, even with the phones and the things, like, I don't know how easy it is to tell your work, hey, I need my lunch hour, but maybe you need to do that. Maybe you need to say, sorry, you can't contact me from 12 to 1. That's my lunch hour. I'm not going to be at my desk. I'm not going to answer anything. I think you can probably do that. I think you have to do that for yourself. And the same with the end of your workday. You can tell whoever you're working with that, hey, after 5 or 6 p.m., I'm not looking at any of my work stuff. I'll look at it when I start my working hours in the morning, and that's when I'll respond again. From after whatever time, I'm not going to be available. You need to set that. You have to set those boundaries. And then you have to let your family know, hey, just please respect that these certain hours, I have to be, my full attention is at the job. Unless it's an emergency, just please respect these hours. And when I am off, that's our family time. Then come to me with whatever, and I'm going to help out at the house, that kind of thing. And make it designated. I know for us at home, when it came to dinner time, we told the kids, like, no phones at the table. Mm-hmm. The dinner hour is off limits. The phones get put away. Nobody's phone is at the table. This is our time to talk as a family. It's the only time we have during the day where we're all together. And we established that boundary. Mm-hmm. We set that up. And this is the kind of thing where you do have to set that for yourself and say, I'm not even going to look at my emails. I'm not touching any of that except for my working hours. Or maybe you give yourself a 30-minute window that's off hours. That's like, I'll just check it just to make sure nothing's really important. But you have to really make those for yourself and your family. And you need to discuss it with your significant other and say, okay, because you want them to know and feel that they are important too, and know that you're making time for them, because to them, it's like, it's always going to feel like work's more important if they can't get your time. And you don't want them to feel that way.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the lessons learned I think a boundary everybody needs to set immediately. Take your work stuff off your personal phone. So for me, I was able to put my work stuff on my personal phone. It required some system stuff and some security things on there. But I should have just let the company pay for a secondary phone. So at nighttime when I was off work, I put it in a drawer. You need to make sure no phones, no emails, no contact, except for if it's an emergency when it comes to work in the end of the day. If 5 p.m. is your cutoff for work, everything shuts down at 5 p.m. And you have to be okay with that. And it was really hard for me to do that, especially as a senior leader. I had people, my managers and director, they were getting a hold of me and saying, well, you're out of these meetings that you've been in for 12 hours. Like, I need some help. And then, of course, I owe it to them to be there for them. Meanwhile, I got Stephanie coming in and saying, hey, it's like 6 p.m. You've been at work since 7 a.m. Like, we're going to eat dinner pretty soon. You're going to come out here and eat dinner. Now, I feel guilty because I'm not prioritizing my family, but I'm also trying to balance prioritizing work and the things that I have going on. What I will tell you, there will never be enough time in the day to finish all of the work. It just doesn't happen. You ever done those emails at nighttime feeling like you're going to catch up? Mm-hmm. And the next day you show up to work, there's a bunch of emails waiting for you. It's because the work never stops. It will always be there. But if you don't create boundaries with your place of employment, you won't always be there either. And I guarantee you that. Because the best case scenario is you get burnt out enough to leave and go find another job. These boundaries are absolutely critical and vital to your personal happiness and well-being. I told you what the statistics were at the beginning.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's like Stephanie said, like, she would bring me lunch in here and I had to give her a thumbs up from the side of the camera because I'm on a Zoom call, 10, 12 Zoom calls throughout the entire day. But she knew, like, I was focused and I was at work. If you need to, this is why this is number one, and we're talking about it so comprehensively. These boundaries are important. So have that conversation with your spouse where you say, hey, I'm going to be zeroed in.
I just wanted to say, I know there's some people out there like teachers, and maybe there's work that you have to do after, like you have to grade papers. I don't know where you find time to do that, but you still have to kind of, if you're raising kids, we know, like, generally though, you'll put your kids to bed kind of early, like 8 o'clock. So once your kids go to bed, and then that's your only time with your significant other. But maybe at certain times, if your significant other feels like you're making the time for them most of the time though, then sometimes you'll be like, okay, but I have this big project. I have to spend a little extra time on this. They're going to be a lot more understanding about that because they're like, but in general, you set the boundary, and I know that I come first unless there's something that's really going on that you have to work on. But that's the kind of stuff where this really requires a lot of communication on your part, and this requires you to set those boundaries and make the time. And maybe there's like a set amount of time that you're like, okay, I'm going to grade these papers, or I got to do this little bit of extra because I really don't have the time at work. But it can't be all the time. And it can't just be, you just do this every day nonstop, and it's always like you're never caught up. If that's the case you find yourself in, that you're just it's always nonstop, then you have to realize it's always going to be there, and regardless of how much you work on it. So you might as well make the time for yourself, because everybody needs that. You need that break from it. You need that your mind does need a break, and you need to step away from it, because like we saw, Walt actually experienced burnout. So he knows firsthand that if you don't turn it off, it's going to get to you at some point. It's going to catch up to you, and you're not going to be able to do it at all.
And stop working so hard. Stop allowing yourself to say, you know what? You know how many hours today that I put in? Look at this badge of honor that I'm wearing that's full of resilience. Watch me, everybody. When meanwhile, we're truly miserable inside, and we're wearing this fake smile every single day. You have to stop allowing your place of employment to lead you to burnout. That's what the boundaries do. And also, it's about quality time with your spouse, not necessarily quantity. If you and your spouse are together and you're scrolling phones, Well, then you're not really connecting. So it's about being able to share, like you said, that couple that was at, hey, I got a new acting gig today. That's freaking sweet. You're like, you just want to share this joyful moment with the person who's most important to you, your spouse. It's being able to say, hey, I'm going to disconnect from everything. No TV, no anything. We're just going to have this 30 minutes to share about our day, 15 minutes to share about our day after the kids are asleep, before we go to bed, and just kind of connect with each other, because that's where you really keep the love alive. But if you're checking emails in the time that you should have been connecting with your spouse at 11 p.m., you're not going to ever find that time to connect with your spouse. So you have to make it a priority, and you have to make setting boundaries with work a priority too. And so the second one, they're all kind of under boundaries, but outside of clear boundaries with your job and your spouse, the second one is take your breaks and your lunch, especially if you're working from home and your spouse is there. Try to take them together if you both are, or if one person isn't working and there's the supporter in that, take it together and eat lunch or take your break with your spouse. Look, guys, like I can't tell you how many times I've worked through lunch in my corporate career. In the military, I didn't really do it that much. Or didn't take a break, but I was like telling my managers and telling my the employees to take their breaks and lunches, right? I was like super adamant that they took them, but I wasn't setting the good example either. So what would happen sometimes, I'd catch them working through, I'm just trying to catch up. Well, you do it too. And I thought, damn, like I'm not setting the example, but I need that time too. You can't be the best you at work and the top employee that you're trying to be if you don't take the time to decompress during the day. We're not meant to go full all out 8, 10, 12 hours a day. We're just not. Take the 30 minutes, take the 15 minutes, schedule those in daily.
I know for me, when I was working a traditional job, I looked forward to my lunch break. That was like, broke up the day. And I was like waiting for that lunch break. Like I need a break from this. And it gives you something to look forward to. So I can't even imagine just working your whole day and never taking that break.
Well, that's the problem. Like I would look forward to it. I just wouldn't take it because there was always work to do, always something else, or somebody wanted to have a meeting, and that was the only spot in my schedule. But I'll tell you, before I went for work from home, when I scheduled it and I took it, period, outside of the rare occasion when there was something that I really needed my attention, I was happier. I was healthier at work. Like my mood was better. I was less tired. My focus in meetings was way better. I was just all around easier to be around too.
So I was going to say, it affects your mood. And so, which affects everyone around you. Because if you're not in a good mood and you're irritable because you aren't getting that break, it's going to affect everyone around you. You're going to take it out on them. So it is important that you take that break, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you.
And maybe that's where you connect with your spouse, or maybe you tell your spouse, like, hey, I just want to go sit in a chair in the quiet and not talk or do anything with anybody because I'm doing that all day. I just need my 15 minutes for this break. But at lunchtime, we'll sit down and we'll chat. Then it's easy to do that. That's the communication. And we've done, I don't know how many episodes on communication because it's hard, but it's vital that you can have. But that's part of setting the boundaries is I'm going to take my breaks and lunch. I've earned them. I deserve them. You're not letting me do that. It's actually required by law that I take them. I'm going to stop feeling bad for taking the time during the day for me to reset myself, center myself, and show up as the best me.
Right. I agree. So the next one is prioritize self-care and quality time, which we've kind of already talked about, but this is really important. And so not only you need that quality time with your family or your significant other, you need it for yourself too. Like I was saying, you really do need those breaks for your own mental health, because you really do have to let your brain stop thinking, let it not have to focus on that.
Let
kind
it
of
cool
stuff.
off. Yeah. Stop being it, let it get on fire. That's what it feels like.
It really does affect your whole mood, energy, everything. And you can't show up for the people in your life if you're not putting some of that into yourself. And trust me, Walt and I have both experienced this, to where we have had burnout and we were trying to pour from an empty cup, and it did not lead to good things. I'll just say that. It really, really is important. I learned this as a very valuable lesson, that I have to pour back into myself sometimes. And I know for me, I'm an introvert, so I need time to myself, really by myself, to where, especially as a mom, when you have kids at you all day and you feel like, and you probably, there's people who feel like that from work too. Like if you have people all day and it's like, I need to like just do nothing and not have to talk to anybody and that's how I recharge my battery. It's not the same for everybody, but I know a lot of us do need that decompress to just, okay, I just need to, it's what recharges me.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of that self-care is just eating better. So I didn't always do that. Then if you don't eat good or you eat something super heavy, like you're a little bit sluggish, sometimes
or exercise.
It's exercising, right? Getting up 30 minutes earlier, just taking a walk, or for you, it might be reading a book. It might be playing Xbox. For some people, it might be visiting with your spouse. Like it might be just literally sitting in the quiet, putting on some meditation music and just zoning out. It might be taking a 15-minute nap. For some people, find the things that create that self-care for you. And then on the weekends and on your off time, make sure you do things you like. I cannot tell you how many people I know that when I ask them, what do you like to do for fun? They don't even know. And that's what I was getting to. I didn't even know what I like to do for fun anymore. I remembered like back in the day, I used to do this for fun, but I wasn't doing it anymore.
Well, and as you get older, you realize you can't do some of the same things you used to do.
Yeah, but then you don't even consider, well, what do I like to do for fun now? Well, shit, I don't really know because all I do is work all day. And by the way, think about when you're at work and when you got this to-do list and this task list, right? Whether you're blue collar or white collar is irrelevant. You're in meetings and you're going to talk to this person and you're running here and there's never enough time in the day to get the job done. And you're just, oh my God, I'm over here. Like you're creating anxiousness and anxiety. You're building it in yourself because you're not setting a boundary with your place of employment. And by the way, boundaries, whether they're on personal relationships with yourself or with your place of work, teach people how you're willing to be treated. So if you don't create them, they're not going to create them for you because they're going to take every last bit and ounce of energy that they can get for the same price. And whether you're working a 12-hour day and getting paid for 8, or you're working an 8-hour day and getting paid from 8, they don't pay you more. They don't do anything extra.
I love that you said that. And I just saw that like a quote or meme somewhere where it said that like, you are what you allow or something like that. I mean, and it's really true that whatever you're allowing is what's going to happen. So if you don't allow people to take advantage like that, then they can't. But if you allow it, it's just going to continue to happen as long as you allow it.
And by the way, some of you guys are sitting there and being like, bullshit, I don't allow it. That's what I would have said that when I was still working in corporate America. That's bull crap. I don't allow it. There's stuff that has to get done. If I don't get it done then, when am I going to get done? I'll just keep stacking up. And then, they're going to look at me and say, well, why aren't you getting all your stuff done? You know what? Because you guys have made it so unreasonable and put so much work on me. Even when I've told you I'm strapped and I can't get it all done and I need some support and some help from my senior leaders, and you just tune it out, probably because they felt the same way. Two, that you just, like, you're never going to catch up. And so you have to take that time and take that quality time and do the self-care things that are necessary. You owe it to you as a human being. You owe it to your spouse and your children first after that. And then way down the line, you owe it to your work, because the better you feel from a day-to-day perspective, the more rested you are from a day-to-day perspective, the better you show up at work. So it actually creates a bigger win long-term. And so the fourth thing, okay, so we talked about they all kind of go together. Establishing clear boundaries, right? Take your breaks and your lunches. Prioritize self-care and quality time. Oh, and I want to add one more thing for the quality time thing. Take your vacation days. Oh, I would not allow people that worked for me to give back vacation days at the end of the year because they just didn't take it. I'm like, just stay at home and don't do nothing there. Sit around in your boxers all day and chill. Yeah. Whatever you got to do, just don't let the company take back days that you earned. That's not fair from a life fairness perspective to me. And
it just seems crazy to me. I'm like, how could you not take your vacation days? I don't know.
Because there's always some work to do.
Right. That's what I mean.
I mean, I feel that. I got close a couple times where then I had to get indignant. Like, no, I'm about to take these days. Y'all are not going to let me miss my
But
vacation
you
days.
do. If you don't prioritize it, they're not going to do it for you. So
There'll always be some big corporate meeting you got to be at first. Well, I mean, that's not a good time, but I don't really care if it's a good time because I need a damn break. And I earned the vacation days. You didn't give me those. I earned them. There's a really big difference in the mentality switch you have when you take that approach to it.
And I think we'd be surprised if you really, because I had this happen early on. I was in a job when I was like 20, and I had moved away from where my family was at, and I was like really missing them because I moved with him, was military, so I'm far away from my family, and it's Christmas time, and it was blackout for our work in Christmas. Like nobody was supposed to take off, but everyone else that I worked with their family wasn't far away. I was like the only one that was away from my family. So I had asked my boss, and she knew that I was a military spouse, and I said, I really want to go home and see my family for the holidays because I never get to see them and I'm really missing them. And she immediately was like, it's blackout. You can't take that off. So I literally threatened to quit. I said, if you don't give it to me, I'm quitting then.
I remember we talked about that.
Yes. And I was like really in a quandary. Like I went home and was telling him like how they're telling me no, but I'm like, I really want to go home. I haven't seen my family. And he's like, well, it's not that you can get another job. Like, it's not that important. If that's really that important to you, then tell him you're going to quit. And at first I was like, I can't do that. And then I did. I actually, when she told me no again, I was like, well, then I'm going to quit if you don't give it to me. Well, she changed her tune. They let me have it. And I got to take the vacation. I went home to see my family. So.
And you still worked there for a couple years after that and got raises and everything else. And I think that's the fourth thing I want to talk today about. Don't sit and grind relentlessly until you're broken. You guys, there's so many different places that you could work out there. And look, I know it's scary when you've got tenure and it's challenging to move to a different company and the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But if you've talked to your bosses, if you've let them know like you're burnt out and you need more time and you need to set these boundaries and you need to do these things and it's just going in one ear and out the other. Maybe you don't run up to them like Stephanie did and say, well, if you don't let me go, I'm going to quit. I mean, you could do that in your early 20s, maybe a little harder later. Go look for another job. Go look for another job because at the end of the day, you're replaceable and so are they. Go find someplace else to work that'll actually appreciate you and where you can have more balance if the place where you work now won't allow it.
But it is that ridiculous sometimes. I'm like, I had to threaten to quit to get the time off that I wanted.
Well, you know, it was more ridiculous when I said, tell him you'll quit. You were like, no, I can't do that. Remember? And I was like, why not? And you thought about it and you said, I guess there's really not a reason why not. And then you did it.
Yeah. Well, because I know we all feel like the security of your job, and that's what they're counting on is we feel like, well, I don't know if I can go get another job that easily or what I'm going to get. And then I can't pay my bills and I can't support my family. And that's what they're counting on. That's how they take advantage of us as workers. But sometimes we do have to set the precedence of like, okay, but I'm putting my family first. I know you aren't, but I am.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, you don't need to go tell your job you're looking for someplace else. Just start looking for another job. Mm-hmm. Put some applications in if you need to. Take some sick time. Take some PTO time to do interviews. Do what you got to do to get the hell out of there. If you just know that there's never going to be a positive change for you and it's going to keep making you struggle and it's going to keep making your family struggle. The dollar bill will never be worth the negative outcomes that come from that. So find the balance, set the boundaries, take your breaks and lunches, take your vacation time,
and
prioritize your self-care.
You see during COVID, a lot more people started standing up for the things that they were like I think they finally started to realize like they were really losing everyone because people were like, I can't work like this. I need time off. I need to be, and companies are starting to have to adjust to where they are trying to pay more attention to people's mental health. And they're, sometimes we do have to be the ones that initiate that stuff because they're just going to keep working you till you just can't. And then they'll replace you. So
And by the way, that's what's happened to senior leaders too. Like all the way up and down the chain of command, it's happening. Do more with less. And people are just fried. Don't let them fry you until you lose your happiness and you lose your joy and you potentially lose your family because you didn't put the priorities where they needed to be at.
No job is worth that. Trust me.
Ever. No, trust me. I'm going to tell you the truth. I know. So look, guys, 4 different things: boundaries, take your breaks and lunch as a vacation, prioritize your self-care and quality time. And if you need to, go find another place of employment. You won't regret it. To get the hell out of some place that's just wearing you to the bone and breaking your back for absolutely nothing. And so look, as much as work from home, the fact that we don't have to drive in, the fact that we don't have to deal with traffic, the fact that you could be wearing some shorts while you're wearing your polo shirt and be more comfortable at your desk every single day. The fact that you could do all of these things can create an amazing time working from home. It can actually be something that gives you more time back than you would be able to get back any other way. But it's also a double-edged sword. It can also suck you dry of every single second you have in your day and blur the lines between work and home like it never has before, and lead you to burnout and lead to struggles in your marriage and lead to struggles as a parent. Don't allow it to do that. Find the balance, set the boundaries, get all the goodness of what working from home can offer, or a hybrid schedule, whatever it looks like for you, and make sure that you're setting a new standard for what you will and won't accept when it comes to the rest of it.
The only thing I'm going to add, the main thing I'm going to say is set boundaries. Set boundaries with your work and make your families the priority. And that's all I got to say about it.
So you know what? Let's get some balance working from home so that our marriage and our families become healthier. We hope that this podcast really helped you. Like always, go to LegacyDrivenMarriages.com. Commit to building your marriage and family. This is where we give you a free weekly newsletter that includes marriages tips, tactical advice relevant to the podcast that you just heard. And it really helps you not only become the best version of you, but it helps you and your spouse become that power couple and that light that other people say, like, wow, how are they really doing it? And then you can help them the same way we've helped you. It's just such a beautiful cycle when it all works together. So, but look, we've had a blast with you guys today. And until the next time,
get into the arena of your marriage, keep fighting for your relationship, and keep elevating your generational legacy. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Let's go.